Iran's regime is as radical as ever. Its cries of death to America, that same America that it calls the great Satan, as loud as ever. Now, this shouldn't be surprising, because the ideology of Iran's revolutionary regime is deeply rooted in militant Islam.
With a speech from Benjamin Netanyahu splitting the American Congress, again, a spanking new defeat of the GOP by Democrats over DHS funding, again, and a debate over Hillary Clinton and emails, again. We got plenty to talk about. Welcome to the arena. Let's also welcome back former Texas Republican congressional candidate Katrina Pearson, and from the left, former Deputy Staff Secretary to President Bill Clinton and Democratic strategist David Goodfriend. Good to see you both. David, welcome into the fray.
Thank you.
David, I'm going to have to believe, come on now, let's be honest here, just between you and I and nobody else. Everything that's happening here with Hillary Clinton and all the emails right now, on top of Benghazi, trouble in the Clinton Foundation, a lot of other things. Come on, even the Democrats are starting to worry just a little bit here because they got a break in the law this time.
Well, not so fast. I mean, if you look at all the Republican candidates from Jeb Bush to Bobby Jindal to Scott Walker, all of them have used their own separate email systems as public officials. And you can call it illegal if you want, but what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If it's bad for Hillary Clinton, then it's bad for Jeb Bush, because when he was governor, he had a separate email system that he then took home after his governorship.
Okay, however, I got to just point this out here. Let me just point this out. Federal Records Act passed in 1950. The head of each federal agency shall make and preserve records containing adequate and proper documentation of the organization, functions, policies, decisions, procedures, and essential transactions of the agency. That's a law in 1950, and it says the head of the federal agency, David.
Right. So it says shall make a record. That record is preserved. It's on a different system. I don't think this is a slam dunk illegal act, as you might claim. I think rather, if like me, you've ever used a government IT system and you know how horrible they are, you too would want to use your cell phone, your email, your own platform, so long as those records are preserved, so long as under any legitimate legal proceeding, Hillary Clinton turns over any documents that have to be turned over. No harm, no foul.
Okay, all right, I'm going to give you that one. Let me turn it over to Katrina. Your response.
Well, you know, maybe just like Lois Lerner, her hard drive crashed and they couldn't find anything, and so she just used her personal email. Who knows? But the problem with this is just another thing to go into the Hillary Clinton bucket of her violating the rules, violating the process as a higher elected official, and it is going to cause a problem for her. But the reason why nobody's worried about it is because we have such cowardly leadership on the Republican side. Nothing is going to be done about it.
All right, now, David, I gotta throw this one to you here, because this is another part of our conversation here. Quite frankly, the Democrats have beaten the Republicans when it comes to DHS funding, the immigration standoff here. They've beaten them in a number of things ever since the midterms last year. Even you will have to agree that the Republicans are looking pretty beat right now, and there's really not a whole lot of leadership there.
Well, listen, the last time this topic came up here on your show, I said Democrats should not spike the football too early.
Right.
Remember that?
Yes, I do.
On the same topic. So in this case, you're right. I think Democrats won a round in this fight over immigration. But don't forget, there's a federal lawsuit in the Texas Federal District Court that could pose problems to the Obama immigration policy. That has to play out as well. That's Republican governors who've sued the president under a constitutional theory. Let's see what happens there. But I think if I could just step back for a second, if we could try to get away from the tit for tat.
Sure.
If you're a conservative Republican and you're frustrated because Congress isn't able to enact your agenda, you're not too different from a progressive Democrat who feels exactly the same way. And I think there's a reason for that. Our constitutional system really was set up for compromise, that it was set up to get somewhere in the middle. So you have people on the far left and people on the far right who may be frustrated by that, but as an American looking long term, I think that's our system at work.
All right, well, Katrina's shaking her head here, and I know that every
disagree.
time the word compromise comes up, I know that. Go ahead, Katrina.
I fundamentally disagree with that, simply because we would be in a democracy if that were the case, but we are in a republic, which means if you just look at this last election where you had overwhelming support for Republicans who ran against stopping the Obama agenda, who ran specifically against this DHS overreach with amnesty, illegal immigration, whatever you want to call it, people across the country in red states and blue states said, no, we want to stop this. A compromise to that is not to go ahead and let it move forward, which is what John Boehner himself and leadership did using a parliamentary trick called Rule 22. Most people don't follow that process, but conservatives who are trying to stop the Obama agenda know exactly where the problem is. It's not because we have leaders that want to compromise, it's because we have leaders who are failing to lead.
Ooh, I think it's around all the way for leaders. It doesn't make a difference whether it's left or right or blue or red here. A couple of minutes I got left here. David, I'm going to start with you on this. Obamacare is now at the Supreme Court. We've seen a couple of early comments coming out here. But I got to tell you, the one thing I'm looking at is, if indeed Obamacare is struck down at the Supreme Court, there's going to be an awful lot of people out there who are going to be without insurance for a time.
Yes, and you know, even a court that I would call interventionist, like the Roberts Court, where they overturned First Amendment jurisprudence of 100 years in order to enact Citizens United, for example, even they, I believe, would be very leery to upset the apple cart in that way where 7 million people would lose their benefits. I think the Supreme Court spoke loud and clear the first time around on the Affordable Care Act, upholding the act, John Roberts joining the 4 Democratic appointees on the court. It's hard for me to see a pathway where, now that the program has been in place for a number of years and millions of people are dependent on it, the Supreme Court suddenly would do an about-face. It's hard for me to see that scenario. And as a lawyer, I must tell you, the theory here is very narrow. The lawyers for the plaintiffs found one set of words, 4 words, that seem to contradict other words in the statute. Well, Justice Scalia himself has upheld what he calls the whole act rule. If you're going to really enact the intent of the statute, you have to look at the whole statute. So picking out 4 words and saying we're hanging our entire legal theory on that, I think is a rather thin case, especially with the conservatives on the court.
All right, Katrina Pearson, 30 seconds response, last word.
Well, it is about the interpretation, but the words are very important because it says state exchanges, not federal exchanges, and that's an insertion. I think the court is going to look at the 57 million people affected, not the 7 million people, and make the right decision. It is not going to stay together by including what the IRS wants to do with the federal exchange, because more than majority of the states don't want it, period.
Oh boy, let's wait and see what happens when the Supreme Court rules on this one. David Goodfriend, pleasure to see you again. Good to see that you did not fall into my trap that time. Very nicely put, David. See, I can kid with David about that now because I got him marked at this point. David, thanks a lot for joining us. Katrina Pearson, always a pleasure to have you on the show. We'll look forward to talking to you both again. Take care. All right, coming up next, America, the World Cop. Let's face it, we've heard this all before, how America is considered to be the top policeman in the world. It still holds in a lot of cases, and very few trust us anymore in Asia. Things are moving and shaking, and they're not good. It's coming up next on MidPoint.